The Young Liberals, on the other hand, Mike Jeffries. I guess this doesn't surprise too many people. The New South Wales Young Liberals have released their Green Future Plan, saying it better represents their generation's view on the climate. But the PM, of course, has stood by the government's commitment. Does it surprise you that the Young Liberals say we should be doing more in Australia to reduce our carbon emissions?
Maybe they believe it. Maybe they're just playing to the main chance. They did say one thing that makes sense. We really should have a serious look at nuclear. I agree with them on
Yes. Yes, it's a very good point. Caroline, does it surprise you that the Young Liberals have come out to virtually contradict what their main master, the head of government, is saying?
No, it doesn't. And at the same time, they're entitled to their opinion. It's a pretty cute wish list, though, and there's a lot of things on that wish list which actually don't correlate to what they want. So, you know, they talk about, oh, we don't want big government, but let's have this national household solar scheme. Remember the last time we let the government put stuff in our roofs?
Yeah.
And it just, you know, oh, let's have renewables but no lower standard of living. Well, unfortunately, the way the technology is at the moment, we can't have renewables and retain our standard of living. It is going to be more expensive. It is going to be less reliable. So, look, like I said, they're entitled to their opinion. I think it's a bit, some of it's a bit fanciful.
I'm glad you've been taking it easy on them.
When I was in the Young Liberals, we used to talk about industrial relations reform, tax policy. This purely from the Young Liberals. Climate change is an issue of privilege. It's an issue of an inner city circle. It doesn't relate to people's jobs or everyday life. And perhaps they're too young, but if we could learn anything from the last decade, is that climate policy doesn't change votes. If it did, Malcolm Turnbull would still be Prime Minister and a successful one at that. And if it did, Bill Shorten would have won the so-called climate election where Scott Morrison had no climate policy.
Without doubt. Good point. Good 2 points. Queensland will be going to the polls in October this year. Yes, it's now this year, not next year. And One Nation is already upsetting the major parties by declaring it will not give preferences to the majors. I remember, Mike, in 1998, at the GST election, John Howard snuck in by the hair of his chinny chin chin, and one of the reasons he blamed for only just sneaking in and losing so many seats was the fact that One Nation did a similar thing. It will make a big impact because she'll have probably 90 candidates, 90 seats to influence.
It's interesting what Pauline is doing here, whether it's strategically smart or just a bit of payback or maybe a bit of both. I'm interested in her position if she gets in what she's going to do with preferential voting. I really used to support preferential voting back in the day because I thought we had a system where everybody was involved. Even if you didn't get the people you wanted, at least you may have influenced the outcome. But I think it's way past its use-by date.
Too right. I couldn't agree more. Caroline, what do you think? 90 seats, big influence, big impact. And so in some ways it could put the Labor government, where the polls are saying they don't have a chance, it could put them back in the game in Queensland.
Yeah, and look, it's a possibility. It's bound to affect both parties to some extent. The thing is with the LNP in Queensland is they've got a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah.
And a bit of a bump from One Nation would help them make up that ground a little easier. So it is going to make it more difficult, but, you know, the punters aren't stupid. And Queensland in the federal, and I know it's federal, not state, but, you know, Queensland in the federal election, they wanted to support mining and they wanted to support coal. So they can differentiate on policy and it will have some impact, I think, but it'll be interesting to see what ultimately happens.